Alright guys, what we have here is a Century Radikal gasser helicopter, 700 size for you new guys with helicopters. Just got this thing used, brought it out here, fired it up. The throttle servo was having an issue with interference from the spark plug wire. Went to wide open throttle, and it also the servo was backwards for the throttle, and it was really crazy. Really hard to control. Luckily I had a hold of the tail of it, but it stripped out the tail gears on it. So in this situation you can't find tail gears, especially for an upgraded version of this that has the drive system in the tail instead of the belt system. So what I'm having to do is take a Trex 700 front tube gear set. Here's one brand new in the package. I ordered two because, you know, you always screw up the first one. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to replace and actually use my old gears to fix this scenario. So here's the factory ones. This is how they would sit in there in the back of the tail housing. And these are the ones from the 700. If you notice, the factory one from Radikal is quite a bit bigger here, so I can't make this bigger. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to make this hole bigger, and I'm going to set this in, and then I'm going to put a pin in there to hold it in place. And the same thing with the other gear. You can see the Trex one is quite a bit bigger, so I'm going to have to cut it down and probably keep this shaft right here on there to make it the same. So what we can do first is go ahead and take some measurement for you guys so you can see what they are in case you're considering doing something. You can do this with any other type of helicopter that is out of date and you can't get parts for it. So I'll show you the factory outside here, so 0.58 inches. We'll switch it over to millimeters because that's how they do everything. So it's going to be right at 15 millimeters for the input on that one, and for the Trex one it's right at 12 millimeters. So I've got to take the inside of this, make it a 12 millimeter hole so this one will sit in there. And then on this one, as you can see, I'm going to have to cut the gear down to make it that size to fit inside the tail frame. So I need to make the Trex one about 5 1/4 millimeters, where right now it is 7 7/8 millimeters. I'm going to take you through the process of doing that. And we'll see how it turns out. Hopefully it works out pretty good. Let's go get on the mill and see what happens. Alright, so you see I'm using a, I want to say cheap Harbor Freight metal lathe. However, they're not cheap anymore. These things right now are running right around $800–900 if you buy them brand new. And the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and try and turn down the smaller gear that actually runs direct to the tail rotor drive shaft. And we'll see if we can't catch that on camera here just a little bit. Okay, like I was saying, if you see the stop gear is quite a bit smaller. So what I've got to do, I've got to cut down. If you, whoop, I'm using the wrong one. That's what you're supposed to do in these new videos, right? So if you look, the very tip of it is roughly the same size, but the thickness of it and the amount of teeth is a little bit off. So what I got to do is, let's go ahead and measure this again. The factory one, we'll go back to 0 here. The factory one's roughly from front to back about 5.85 millimeters, and the Trex one is 7.5 millimeters. So I got to take 2 millimeters off the back side of this to make that correct. And I'm going to take it all the way down to this little notch right here. And we're going to take roughly 2 millimeters on it to make this measurement exactly the same. And then I've got to, once I do that, because we'll be cutting into the top of the gear here, and then I'll cut that bevel, that 45 bevel, off the back of it as well. Let's see how that goes. Look at that, see what we got here. Scrap off here. I need to go in a lot more. I couldn't tell because I had so much built up on there. Pop it out of here so we can get that stuff off of it. Go down just a little bit more. Oh, I just bought this thing today, so. Take a measurement on that, see how we're looking. So we're at 5.61. There's the stock one. I think that's about identical. And 5.35 on that one this time, so I can get to where you guys can see that. So that looks pretty good. Now I just got to cut the 45 on it. So it's got a little beveled edge there on the tip, and we'll see how that looks. Alright, here's what I got set up to do this 45 bezel on the back. I'm pretty sure it's not right, but we'll see what happens. Clean all that out. That may take a little more time. I won't make you guys watch all that. But so what we're trying to make is this guy. And the big thing is I got to get it to fit inside of the housing. And the factory Trex would not clear these bearings right here. So let's take it out and see what we got. As far as the actual size of it, I'm not sweating that a whole lot. See, now it fits in here pretty well. So what we've got to do is now just make this thing fit inside of this thing. So I'm going to turn off the front of this. Then I'm going to turn the hole out, and this is going to go inside of there. And then I'm going to run a pin through both of these. And I'll still use this in the helicopter with this set inside of it. And with that being done, we're going to have the same thing. It's just going to have a red tip sticking out of here. Alright, let's see what we get from there. I'm pretty pleased with how that turned out, so let's go ahead and cut the tip of this off. Make sure that's running pretty true. Looks pretty good. This should be a simple cut. See how bad this flings? Not too bad, huh? Alright, let's take a look at that. Now with that cut off, I can see how much I got to take out of here to get this other one to fit down in. So now I've got to open this up to get this to fit down in to that exact same size right there. I'll probably turn this down a little bit more just so that we can fit it all in there in one thing, and I'll have to cut some of this off, because if you look inside of here, you can see where the drive shaft goes into it, and then there's a little spacer in there. So I only want to go to deep as that little spacer, so I'm gonna have to cut off probably about that much of it once we get to that point, so that this slides right in there. Alright, here we go. I got everything set up to try and bore the hole out. I got a 7/16 drill bit in here, which is quite a bit less than the good Lord, if I drop that thing one more time. Oh well. Let's take that. Okay, here we go. I got the drill bit set up. It's 7/16, which comes out, I think, to 0.42. I don't know, but you can see right here, we only need to go to 0.46. So I'm not going to dig out as big of a hole as this will fit in just yet. This is just to make sure that this is going to work. And we still have some material left to take off so that this fits in there nice and snug. Let's see what happens. Seems to be nice and clean. I'll go ahead and take it out and see how that's working. Well, the 7/16 was a little bit small, so I went to a 15/32, and if you look, that's going to be perfect. It's going to be kind of thin on the walls here, but if you look where the drive shaft were to stick in here, you can see that the walls are pretty thin anyway. And since I'm going to have 360 degrees of coverage around it, as long as I don't go outside that edge right there, I think it'll be just about perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and cut on in a little deeper. Let's go ahead and measure how deep I got it cut, and we'll try and do that the correct way. So we're in inches. Let's take this guy. We'll go down there to the edge. Looks like I got to go pretty much 1/2 of an inch in right there. Let's reset that, make sure that's good. 0. And we're going to go in 1/2 an inch till we hit this bottom in there. So should be good to go. I'm trying not to keep pausing the video so that you guys can actually see some of the stuff that I'm doing here. There are graduation marks on this piece right here. So once I get this set, right there is a ½ inch plus 1, 2, 3 marks. So it looks like I need to go 3 marks past 1 inch. If I do that, we should be good to go. Let's see what happens. Stop it and back it on out. Let's see how that looks. It's making some weird noises, so. Oh, that's what's going on. Oh, no, I just knocked that loose. No big deal. Alright, put you back on pause. Well, looks like we're getting exactly what I want. See the hole we're cutting down through in there. And you stick this bad boy in there. Looks like we're doing pretty darn good. So I just got to go about another 1/4 of an inch down in there, because I want, right here is where the bearing and the tail shaft rest. When I put my pin in, I'm going to put my pin in right there. That way when you put this in, the bearing holds the pin in and there's no chance of the pin backing out inside of here. I might actually, we're at that point. Yeah, I'm gonna go just a little bit deeper, and then that means I just got to cut this off to that point there, so this will slide down in. And I'll have to take this off so that it slides all the way in there. I'm leaving this lip because this sets the distance for the bevel on the gear. And so yeah, we're gonna cut this out a little bit more, and then we'll take this and take this lip off, and then this should be ready to sit in there. And once we get that in there, then we'll go put it back in the aircraft and we'll see what it looks like. Make sure everything else is going to fit. Alright, now we got to take and measure the inside of this to see where we need to cut off. Come down, I need to go a minimum of 4.7 to that lip in there. So on this gear, I need to go to 4.7, which is basically right at that scratch right there. So I'm going to come this side of that scratch a little bit to make sure that we're good to go, and we'll cut this off, and that should be the proper length to fit down in there. And we'll have to clean that lip up just a little bit more to make sure it fits in there, and then we should be done with this piece. Let's go ahead and get this back in here. We'll clean up that lip a little bit more. I just didn't want to go too deep because I couldn't see what I was doing because there was so much of this stuff built up. So let's get this back over there. We'll start just so we see a scratch there, and then we'll go right to the end. Just a touch more. Well, that should get it. I'll take this all the way back out. And that should be exactly what we need there. Back this out. I'm going to move it out so that we can cut it off right at that notch we made. So put it in right there. Oh, I keep forgetting that. And we can bring this right in there and we'll cut right on that notch. Just started hitting the chucks there on this little lip, so got lucky there. But that should give us what we need there. And we should be pretty much done with this piece. Where did it go? There we go. So we got this cut off. It still has the Trex torque tube cut out in there. But now this thing should fit directly in here. I'm not going to push it all the way in yet because it was a pain in the ass to get out a second ago. I'm going to make sure I clean that lip up just a little bit because it looks like it's still a little high. So probably going to take that down just a touch when you hear my fingernails sticking on it. And then I'm going to shove it in there, and then we'll drill a hole right through here, put a pin in it, and then this is now my new tail gear. Alright. Alright. Got it all cleaned up. Took a little bit of 220 grit sandpaper just to clean any of the burrs off of there that I got. This is going to be the last time that I actually stick this in here. I'm going to go ahead and snap it shut. I'm going to go polish up this nail a little bit. I'm going to drill a hole through there once I got it set in. This is going to be my pin. It's just a 6-penny nail here. And let's see if this will pop all the way down in there. There we go. I basically just took a Trex 700 gear and my Century Radikal gear mount. Now you can see I got just enough in there. I'm going to put a pin right through the end of that just to make sure this doesn't slip in here. And now I got a brand new gear. Seems like a lot of work, but considering the fact that I cannot get this part anymore, we've got to do something with our hobbies, right? Alright, let me go polish up this nail and we'll get it ready to, I'm just going to stick it in here, drill a hole through there once I figure out the diameter of this, and then we'll be done with this piece. Alright, got my nail polished up, turned into a pin. You can even still got the little grippers on there, but I figured maybe I'd save those and let them help. I gotta determine the size drill bit. 0.0995. Let's see what this drill bit gives me. 0.0935. The next one up's probably too big, so we'll just have to do the other one and just press it in. Yep, next one's too big, so we'll use the little one. I'm just going to drill the hole. Wish I had my drill press over here so I could just take and just pop a hole right down through there, and then we're going to shove this pin right there in it. I'll get back once we got that done. Alright, here comes the really redneck part of this. Let's see if we can get it to focus. I would have liked to have been able to go directly through this with a some sort of a cross bit kind of thing, but we're just going to wing this. It ain't like it has to be absolutely perfect if I can get it started. Yeah. sure I'm about perpendicular to it. I'm just going to go right down in between both of them. There we go, and that was perfectly 90 degrees to the thing, I guarantee it. Alright, let's back this back on out of here. Look at that. Told you it was perfect. All I gotta do is get this pin to go in here. I'm gonna hone that out just a little bit more with the drill bit. I don't want it to be so tight that it's going to split the plastic. So we'll go through a couple more times here on both sides. I do want it to be fairly solid in there, but not. Yeah, I'm going to go through it with the drill bit a couple more times and then we'll get it in there. When I first thought about this, I had a little bit of a problem with only a pin holder. I was just going to glue this in here. But then I got to thinking about the tail, the other part of it. If you look, it only has a pin holding the horsepower there too. So once we get those to where they line up, I'm going to have to trim this one down. I'll drill another hole here to fit the shaft on the actual helicopter. See if this thing's about to go in here now. Yeah, it's starting to go in now. Do it just a little bit more. Like I say, this right here is where the bearing sits. I've got two bearings in here. One's going to be right there, and I want that bearing to hold the pin in. I really don't want the pin to have a tendency to crack any of these pieces right here. So let me make that fit, and I'll be right back. Alright, like I said, I'd want a snug fit. I don't want it to be really that pressed in there. So we're just going to take and stick this in here now. Get that pushed all the way through. And just as long as it clears the bearing on both sides, then I'm going to be perfectly happy with it. Just happen to have it sitting right here. So let's see how we did there, folks. Looks like I need to take just a touch more off that pin. That pin's not quite going down in there. Looks like it should. You see that bearing right there? I want that bearing to hold that pin in. Nope. You get it? And pushing just a little bit hard on it. I'm going to take my wire wheel to that real quick. Just to clean just a little bit more up off of that pin. Looks good on that side. Let me just push on it just a little bit right there. Yeah, I'm going to have to take a little bit more off that pin. I'll be right back. Alright, back. Took just a hair more off of that pin. So it's not quite sticking out there. Looks like it's about perfect. Let's see what we got now. Just not wanting to go in there. That's weird. You know what? I wonder if I made it thicker, putting that other piece in it, and that's got just a little bit of a lip right there. I'm gonna hit that with a little bit of sandpaper because those pins are recessed just a touch now. I'm gonna hit that with a little bit of sandpaper. We'll see if we can get that to go in there. Just a smidge of a lip right there. Now let's see. I guess if I force it, it'll go in there, huh? All right, there we go. Check it out. See, I still have a line over here somewhere. Not much of a line, huh? You can see I still got the fix that I need in there to drive that, and now I got brand new teeth. Just got to make the other piece fit this, and then we'll be good to go. Let's see if I pull that bearing up. So yep, so now that bearing's sticking to that, but that shows you what a good fit it is on there, and that's going to keep that pin in there no matter what happens. So I am done with this. I just got to get the other piece fixed up. Get this bearing back in here now. It's cake, right? Yep, that's seated where it's supposed to be. Good to go on that. It's all nice and pretty. Now we just got to get this thing matching this guy. And once we get that done, we'll get the shaft out of here, and I'll make sure that pin is in the exact same spot so that it meshes with that perfectly. I'll have to take some off the back side. As if you look on the back side of this one, there's just barely anything. So I'm going to take the back side and I'm going to make this gear look pretty much exactly like this gear. And I think the interior diameter is different on this guy. We'll see when I pull the pin out, and it looks like there's a shim of some sort in here. Once I get that pin out, get the gear off of there, and then we'll fight that battle and see what I got to do to make this work. All right, we'll be back. Well, those boys over the line outdid themselves this time. I was trying to take the little gear off to see what kind of shim I was going to have to make to put it in here. If you look, this is a solid piece of nice hardened steel, and it's actually got teeth on it. And it was actually molded to this. So when you're pressing this out, you got to be a little bit careful. Get it pressed out. So I'm going to have to open up this hole a little bit. And then on the little gear, I'm going to do just the opposite, and I'm going to cut this down smaller so that it fits inside that hole, and then do the exact same thing we just did to make this work. So in order to make this fit on this thing's shaft, I'm going to have to use part of this to stick in here. So I got to take a lot of meat out of this and take a lot of meat off of this, and then I'm going to make it fit together, and I'll show you that process. It's going to take a little bit more time than I had planned on, but should end up being pretty sweet. As you can see though, the teeth and the outside are almost identical. Just we got to do something about the inside of that, and I might look into just making a sheath for this to fit on there, because like I say, that is almost identical, and that won't affect anything if I just kept this diameter. And all I got to do is just make this other side match, and that'll take nothing to do that. So we'll get back to you in a little bit. Alright, so the next thing we got to do is make the tail drive sprocket the same size. So I'm going to take a lot off of this one, and then we'll take in this is actually 6.5 millimeters. This is 5 millimeters. So I bought a piece of stainless steel rod, already cut a hole in it, you see, and I'm going to run this into here, and then the tail shaft will actually go through this. So this is basically just going to be a bushing to make that gear fit on my 5 millimeter rod to drive the tail rotor. So let's get this cut up here. I'm just going to go straight in and cut the whole end off of this. Guess it would help if I were to mount this down. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see what's going on there too. It's got about the right thickness of teeth. And like before, I'll do a little bit of a 45 bevel like what that has on it. And there is a little lip here, but I'm not worried about that lip because the rod that I'm putting through this will act as the spacer for the in-between on there. And then we'll shorten up the front of this a little bit to make sure that's the same thickness. And then we should be good to go to put the rod in and put it on the aircraft and see what happens. So I'm going to set this up to do the 45 bezel on this, and I'll be right back with you. Alright, I got this cutting blade set in there so we can get our nice 45 on there. Give us about exactly what we need. Take a look at that compared to the original one. So we're looking pretty good right there as far as thickness goes. I might need to take this down just a little bit more. We'll see when I get it in the aircraft. I don't mind having more teeth to bite onto. And now I've got to drill this hole out, fit the 7 millimeter rod. We'll get that done. Okay, so now I got my bushing cut out. And I've got this thing ready to go on here. Once I get these set in, I just need to set the backlash for this guy, and I'm going to have to take just a smidge off here because I already stuck it in once and it's just a touch tight. But if you look, I got a little bit of a gap there, so I'm just going to have to take just a little bit of this lip off, and then I'll stick it back in there, and we'll see what kind of backlash I got, and we'll be done. Alright guys, there we go. Brand new set of gears for an obsolete helicopter. Backlash is about perfect. I did have to trim on the inside of that one just a little bit more, just to seat down in. There's actually just a little bit of friction in here. Man, that's smooth. Look at that. Get to fly a helicopter that I can't get parts for anymore. The only thing that I screwed up on, this is the original hole in a Trex, and there was my first attempt at drilling a hole. For some reason it went forward on me, and then the second time got it right in there. I don't like how that pin's just in there. I'm going to actually put a piece of shrink wrap on this before I put it in the helicopter, so I gotta make sure that pin doesn't come out, because I actually had to drill through there again once I got it all in position just to make sure the pin went through, because the pin was just slightly offset in there. But it's all good to go now. All we gotta do is just check and see if she'll fly, and I'll add that to the end of this video. Alright, here we go. It's all installed, all ready. I did do a little bit of a test on it earlier. Here you can see it should be working as advertised. Let's see how she does. You already stopped the video, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.